For the first time in 46 years, my guest today is not coaching high school basketball. Bob Anderson, who built a resume that includes 732 career victories, an Elite Eight state tournament appearance, and a plaque in the Illinois Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame, retired as the boys basketball coach at ROWVA Williamsfield in early December. A 1965 Williamsfield High School graduate, where he starred for the Bombers before going on to a successful playing career at Western Illinois University, Bob had coached varsity basketball since 1979-80. Much like my guest last week, former longtime Knox College coach and athletic director Harley Nosher, Bob positively impacted the lives of hundreds of former players, not to mention the community and the game of high school basketball. Talk to his former players, and they'll say Bob Anderson exemplified the traits it takes to make a difference in the world. They'll tell you he just didn't talk the talk, he walked the walk. I'm honored to have Bob with me in the WGIL studios today. Bob, thank you for joining me on Galesburg in Focus.
Thank you, Jay. Honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm really glad you could join us today. So before we get into your retirement and your coaching career, you're about 2 months into not coaching for the first time in 46 years. Are you missing it?
Oh, there are times, Jay. Naturally, I think a person that's been in it this long, you're gonna look at it and you're gonna think about it, and you're thinking, "Well, I wish I was sitting there this game," But it was the right decision, and I've found a lot of things to do, and I'm still studying the game.
Yeah,
trying to learn, so that if somebody calls up and they want to talk basketball, maybe I can do that with them.
I was going to say, after that long, once it's in your blood, you can't really get that out.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Jay.
So what are some of the things you miss and don't miss?
Well, obviously, the thrill of coaching a game. I've said this all along, Jay, that there's nothing any better than taking a group of players, 10, 12, however many you have. You're in the trenches every day. You're working hard every day. And then you take that team out there and you put them on the bench, you play a game. And then you get that performance in a game that you've been striving for and working for, and you win the game. And there's nothing like looking at them in the locker room after that and saying, hey, we won this, hard work did it. What I told you was going to work, and we did it. It's just a great feeling for the kids and the coach as well. And that's one of the things I miss about it.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we came on that you haven't worked up not necessarily the courage, but you really haven't gone to a game since you've retired. What's kind of your thought behind that? And when do you think you might get back to a gym? Well,
I've watched grade school games, and I've got some grandsons playing grade school and that. I just didn't want people to think, after retiring from it, I didn't want people to think that I was there watching every move that the new coaching staff was going to make. I wanted it to be that coaching staff's team.
Right.
I didn't want to interfere with that, and I just felt like, staying away from the gym, and especially now where you can watch them on TV if you get the right stuff. I've watched most every game, and I just felt like I didn't want to be lurking around there and people saying, well, look, there he is, watching over everything. And if he'd do this and that, I wanted to be theirs, and I wanted to get out of it and give it to them. That's kind of the reason.
Okay. So take us back to late November, early December. What led to your decision to retire?
Jay, there's not a million, but it seems like a million things that really figured into this thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that figured in real big was my devastation over the loss of the regional last year.
Right.
I sat on the bench after that game in the locker room, and I said, I can't quit this way. I can't go out this way. And thinking about the kids that we were going to have for the coming season, I thought we had a good chance maybe to get back there again. And I thought, I'm going to work as hard as I ever have, and I'm going to get that team back to that game again. So I, through the summer and everything, and early fall and everything, that was my attitude, and that's what I was trying to do. And then, we started our tournament, and we played the first game, which I coached the first game, and we were successful in that game. The next day, I was very sick. Woke up and was very sick, and I went to work. Was there for about an hour and a half, and I came home. I thought, if I can go to bed and sleep this off, then maybe I'll be ready to coach tonight. Well, my wife went out to the school and got a couple of COVID tests. And she brought those home, and sure enough, I tested positive, and I said to myself, okay, for the first time in 45 years, you're not coaching your team tonight. And then as I thought a little bit longer about it, I thought, you're not going to be coaching Friday night or Saturday either.
Yeah.
So you're going to miss 4 games at least.
Yeah.
And the thing about that, Jay, it didn't bother me as bad as I thought it would. And I thought, okay, if this is the case, maybe somebody's telling you something about this. Mm-hmm. And not to drag this out, but, the kids went on and they won the next 3 games. They're playing for the championship against Port Byron Riverdale. And I said to myself, okay, if they win this game, I'm going back Tuesday, sick. Yeah, if I can crawl in there, I'm going back.
Yeah.
We'll be 5-0. I'm going to be ready to go. Well, they lost that game. And I thought, well, maybe I better give it another week, kind of stay away from everybody whether I had COVID or not, who knows. I thought I better stay away for another week. Well, they lost the game on Tuesday to Delavan. Kind of had it won and lost it. And then I thought, well, here comes Peoria Christian in on Friday night. Big game, really a must-win. And I thought, they've played with the other coaching staff now, Reinhardt as the interim. And I thought, they got 5 games in with him. If I go back and get sick again, then I'm out for a while. Ryan's back in. And I thought, we can't go this back and forth. They need to know the kids need to know who they're going to have. The coaching staff needs to know where they sit. And everybody needed to know. And that's when I decided it's time.
Yeah. I remember when we talked in December, especially that first day, you said you kind of woke up and said, what have I got myself into? What was at least the initial 24 hours or so? I mean, was that pretty tough?
It was. And I had people try to talk me out of it. I had people saying, well, in fact, Tim Forkin, the superintendent, who I called over to my place on that Friday to tell him, he said, well, Coach, why don't you go ahead and finish out the year and then kind of make your decision then? And I said, Tim, this is all the farther I can go. Mm-hmm. I'm done. That was Friday. And then the next day, Saturday, I caught myself in the afternoon watching some basketball or something. And I thought about it, the decision, and it brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
And then the next day I went to an ISU game, college game there at Normal, and had a very good time at that game. An old buddy of mine called me and said he had a couple tickets, and when I got home Sunday night, I felt real good about everything, and I felt good since.
Yeah. So. This is Jay Redfern. I'm talking to Bob Anderson, the former longtime Williamsfield and ROWVA Williamsfield basketball coach. So let's flash back to Bob Anderson, the player. What was it like to play high school basketball in Illinois in the 1960s?
It was fun, Jay. I loved it. It's the most fun of anything I ever did in athletics. I played baseball. I played in college basketball as well. But those high school days, playing high school basketball in Illinois in the 60s was tremendous. Galesburg was good. Pekin was good. So we really had an area of some really good basketball going on. So it was very exciting.
Yeah. Kind of talk about how good were you guys back then and how good were you individually?
Well,
I'll have you brag about yourself a little bit.
Kind of tough question. We had a pretty good ball club. When I was a sophomore, we had a new coach come in, and he was pretty hard, and we had a lot of upperclassmen that quit. And my sophomore year, we started 4 sophomores and a freshman on the varsity. And we had, if I remember going back almost 65 years or so, I think we were a game above 500 for that year. So things really looked good coming in, as junior and senior. So junior year was a big year for us. We started out kind of bad. Started out, I think, about 2-4, and then got on a pretty good roll and went all the way through. Lost one more game regular season, and then we won, as I was telling you, the district tournament, won the regional tournament, and ended up playing in the sectional at Bradley against Woodruff, who beat us by 20. But it was a decent game going into the fourth quarter. And Pekin was on the other side of that sectional. Pekin played Woodruff, and Pekin won, and then Pekin went on and won the state tournament in 1964. Yeah. So I guess I was an okay player.
Yeah.
I guess I put a lot of time in it.
Yeah.
And and I know what time I put in it. And that's what I tell these kids that I've had. I said, one of the statements that I made to them a lot of different times was, if you're only going to put this time in with me in practice after school, don't look to get ahead. You're going to have to put some time in on your own and develop your skills. It takes more work than what I'm giving you here.
Right. Kind of talk about your time at Western. How did you end up in Macomb, and how did your career go with the Leathernecks?
Well, you talked about having Harley in here
Yeah.
a couple days ago. So Harley's probably listening to this, but at the time I was in high school at Winston, my grandfather was working at Knox.
Okay.
And I considered Knox to go there. And I'll have to admit this, I was never a very good student. So anyway, I found out that Knox did not have a major in physical education. And I thought, okay, if you're going to go to Knox, which is a pretty academic school here, and you're not the greatest student in the world, and the Vietnam War is going on, what are you going to major in? And I thought, boy, I'm just not sure what I'm interested in outside of, coaching and playing all that. So that was some of the reason that I didn't go to Knox. And I was a young kid that didn't know a heck of a lot back then. When you talk to coaches, they can, I can see how they can sway you this way and that way, And so when I come back from Western talking to Sticks Morley down there, I told Mom and Dad, I said, boy, I got everything. I said, I'm going to go to Western. I nearly went to ISU. In fact, I was going to live in the coach's basement at ISU. And I was very, very close to going there. And then all of a sudden switched to Western. So that's kind of how I ended up there.
Okay. How'd things go when you were at Western? How did you
We weren't very good, Jay.
You weren't?
No, we weren't very good. So I got, playing on winning teams in high school, and I was playing on losing teams in college. So I got a taste of both of those real good. In fact, our junior year at Western was quite an education. We lost 20 in a row that year, and boy, I tell you, it was I really, really got to know what it was to lose like that. I already knew from high school what it was to win, how much fun that was. So coming out of Western, I knew both sides.
Yeah. What kind of teams were you playing when you were at Western?
We were playing teams like ISU, Central Michigan, some of the Missouri schools, Northeast Missouri State, Southeast Missouri. There were some local. We played Monmouth a couple of years, and then Loris College, some D3 college. We were NAIA, but Milliken, McMurray, teams of that size. Never played Northern, but ISU and Central Michigan was in our conference, and they were always very, very good basketball teams.
I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but you were a pretty prolific scorer when you were at Western.
When I got done at Western, I was the second leading scorer at Western, and then Joe Dykstra come along, and I'm not sure exactly when Joe.
He was in the 80s, I guess.
Yeah. And Joe kind of broke everything. So he was number one, so that put me down to number three. And then there was a kid that they recruited from Southern Illinois here that just graduated from Western not too long ago that moved ahead of me for third place. So I'm fourth all-time leading scorer, but I'll throw this out. Maybe this is the three guys that are ahead of me all played 4 years, and I only played 3.
Yeah.
So I'll throw that in there.
They probably played more games too. In a
They
season.
Did. They did play more games. Yes.
Yeah. So you've graduated from college and your playing career's over. Did you always know that you wanted to get into coaching and teaching? Obviously, if you were looking for that kind of major, you kind of had an idea that that's what you'd be going into.
Yep, I wanted to stay involved in the game of basketball. Did a lot of playing on independent leagues and that when I first got out of college. Had teams that we played till, gosh, we're about 40 years old or so, And I had a teaching job when I first got out of college and taught for a couple of years, and things didn't really go well in that job, and I was a little bit discouraged, and I thought, well, maybe teaching's not my line. I'll go do something else for a while. So I did, had 2 or 3 jobs for about 6 years, and finally decided, you know what? I really want to coach. I want that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so I renewed my certificate and teacher certificate, and the job at Williamsfield became open in 77, and I took it, and I'm there.
The rest is history, I guess, huh? So you spent your entire career coaching at a really small school, and I talked to one of your former players, John Herman, who said it was kind of like David versus Goliath almost every time you played. Did you use that up? I mean, did you play that up and use it as motivation?
We did a lot of times. Yeah, we used that. It was just, and again, it was like I said. There's nothing any better than taking a group of kids out there and working them hard and making them believe in you. And that's what we really tried to do, to try to get the the best we could get out of each team, and give them the mental frame of mind that, hey, if you work as hard as you can at this and do the things that we tell you to do, maybe you got a chance out there.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty good, I think.
So when we say small school, like what was the range of the enrollment when you were coaching?
Well, I figured you'd probably talk about that. I think back in the early 80s, I think at one time, the biggest we ever got, I think, was 130.
Okay.
But that was rare, and we went right down from there. And then for many, many, many years, and I'm not sure what our enrollment is now, but it basically was under 100. And I can remember at times, there was times when we got under 70 and under 80 at times. And in the year that we made the Final Eight, that was 1997, that was our enrollment, 97,
Okay.
they put down for high school enrollment. So that's where we were at that time. It's kind of unique.
Was it ever tough to field a team?
Yes, and that's probably why, yes, it was. And that's why we've kind of ended up with, we co-op every sport with ROWVA now, and that's kind of what that did. I think everybody, a lot of these small schools out in the country and stuff have had problems fielding teams, and you see a lot of consolidation and co-oping going on now. So there were times when it was pretty thin, yes.
Yeah. Ever any thoughts of leaving Williamsfield? Did you have any other people approach you, or did you have aspirations to go to a bigger school?
I did. In fact, this is quite a thing here, Jay, that you bring this up. The first year I was at Williamsfield, I coached the 8th grade in basketball.
Okay.
I had the varsity baseball, 8th grade, or junior high baseball, 8th grade basketball, and varsity baseball. So I got done with that 8th grade year of coaching basketball, and I thought, yeah, I do want a varsity job, and so there was a neighboring school that had an opening, and I went there, and in fact, the principal was a family friend of ours, and I went and talked to him, and he said, I'll take you in and meet the superintendent. I said, okay. So we go in, and I meet the superintendent. We sit down there one-on-one with the superintendent, and he said, so you're interested in a basketball job? And I said, yes, I am. He said, well, what level have you coached? And I said, the only level I've coached is 8th grade. This is my first year. Mm-hmm. And he said, really? He said, we'll interview for the job. But he said, we're really looking for somebody that's got some experience. Yeah. And I thought, had I got that job, I'd have took it and I'd have been gone after the first year. And there were some others. There was a couple of calls about, why don't you apply? And then there were some times that I did apply a few times, different places, and it just didn't work out. And that bothered me a little bit for a while until I got pretty acquainted with a college coach who he and I sent material back and forth. Well, he sent me material. I didn't send him any. And one time he sent me a bunch of stuff, and on one of the pieces of paper it had, make the big time where you're at. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, okay, I'm here at Williamsfield, Little Williamsfield. If I'm going to be here, let's do the best we can do here,
And there's something to be said for spending your whole career at one place, too.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen too much.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen too much.
So this is Jay Redfern. I'm talking to Bob Anderson, the former longtime Williamsfield and ROWVA Williamsfield basketball coach. So you told me when we talked in December that you didn't consider yourself a great coach, and I know a lot of former players and fans and opposing coaches would disagree, but why do you say that?
There are just things about the game, Jay. There were areas about the game that I, after I stopped and thought about them, I thought, you know what, you didn't coach that area very well. And then, there was some of those, 3 or 4 of those areas, and I just, and then talking to other coaches and stuff, I just never had a very high opinion. I really looked at myself as a basketball coach almost like a student, like I was at Western. I wasn't a very good student, and I was a poor test taker. And the only way I could pass the class was to be there every day and did everything that they told me to do. And I felt like, even though I felt I wasn't a real great basketball coach, I thought hard work and doing the things that it takes to put this team together, go to clinics, watch tape, read the newspapers, work with these kids, try to be the best you can, and outwork that guy down the line, and maybe it'll work out for you. And I think that might be as good a thing as I had going for me was the amount of time put in the game as compared to my colleague down the line.
Yeah.
So
I know you like you said, you took pride in always trying to become a better coach. And I've heard that, if there was a coaching clinic, you were probably there. So what did you get out of the clinics, and who were some of maybe the better speakers you saw at those clinics?
Well, I tell you, Jay, Coach Massey and I talked today, and like I said, I'm not sure why Coach Massey with 1,000 wins wants to talk to a guy who's got 540-some losses. But anyway, we talk basketball. And that's the main reason that I'm still studying the game now is I want to be able to talk to people like that. But I went to clinics that, Bob Knight was at, Hubie Brown, Dean Smith, all those, a lot of those, Mike Krzyzewski. And I tell you, Jay, those people are, Bill Self, Kansas, went there. Those people are incredible. And they just, there's always a new way to do something, or a better way, or a way that people are saying, hey, did you try this? Look, this is what we found has worked for us. And that's, that's kind of some of why I've kept in it. And that's, there's big, when you go to Coach Massey, and I said this today, he said he had a friend of his who was coaching Rock Island Allman, and he said they were talking, Coach Massey and I was at the state clinic this past fall in September down to Illinois Wesleyan. And he said he was talking to his buddy there, and he says, every time I come to one of these things, he says, I know what I don't know.
Yeah.
He said, I learned about how dumb I am when I come to these things. And that's kind of the way I felt.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of success at Williamsfield, but, there was one season that really stands out. 1997, you lead the Bombers to a 28-3 record and the school's only state finals appearance. What made that team special, and when did you kind of know that would be a special year?
Well, one of the things that made that team special was Travis Lewis.
Yeah.
And when you got a player like that, that's pretty special. He averaged about 33 a game when he was a senior. Played all 4 years as a varsity player, and it's nice, Jay, to have somebody. The going's tough. Let's give Travis the ball here on the right hand side, get out of his way, and let him go. And that really made that team special. But the kids that played with him, they knew who the player was.
Yeah.
And they knew what their role was, and they did their roles very, very well. And that's what really contributed to that squad, was the fact that they were a good team with good chemistry, and that's what really did that. I think talent-wise, we might have been better the year before.
Okay.
Because we finished the year before undefeated in the regular season and got beat in the championship game of the regional. We might have been a little better talent-wise.
Who'd you lose to that game?
Princeville in the regional. And that's one of my devastating losses, too. But we talked about we might have been a little better talent-wise that year. But the next year, and I made, here we're talking about you don't consider yourself a very good coach. Well, here's the stupid mistake I made in the year would be 96 regional. I told our kids, Farmington was in our regional, and I told our kids, I said, I want to beat Farmington for the regional title. That was wrong.
Yeah.
I should have never said that. On Thursday night, I'm over there scouting Farmington playing Princeville, and Princeville beats them. And everything is just like, boy, you're deflated.
Yeah.
And I know it did a lot to the kids, and that was a mistake that I made as a coach then, and I thought, don't make that mistake again. And I think taking some of that into the next year really helped us make that Final Eight the next year.
Okay. So in 97, I think that was just the second year that the state tournament was in Peoria. So you've been following high school basketball in Illinois for a long time. So Champaign or Peoria, which is your favorite?
Well, I think obviously, when it all started, it was at Champaign, and I remember going to as a player, as a team, we went to the first state tournament in the Assembly Hall, which was 1963, I believe.
Okay.
And what a build! You walk in there, it's just amazing. I haven't been in there in a long time, and I know they've done a lot of remodeling. So that was the place for that state tournament. Then it moved to Peoria, and I think a lot of people, didn't like that a lot. But Peoria did a great job with it. They did a great job with that tournament. And then I think after Peoria had it a while, I think a lot of them were kind of sad maybe to see it go back to Champaign. But when we played in Peoria, and we were in the state tournament. It didn't make any difference whether Peoria or Champaign. We were in state tournament, so it was great.
Yeah. This is Jay Redfern. I'm talking to Bob Anderson, the former longtime Williamsfield and ROWVA Williamsfield basketball coach. So, how is coaching high school basketball different today than it was when you first started coaching?
Well, obviously, Jay, you might want to throw out internet.
Yeah.
I mean, there are just so many things for kids to do today. And, now our kids, with a co-op like this that we are, they're able to play football, run cross country, play golf, all those types of things. So your kids, I think, are a little bit strewed out a little bit thin, stretched a little thin. And, I think it's fine to be a three-sport athlete, but I'm not sure how well you can excel in each one of those unless you're very good athletes. You really, to me, I mean, I played basketball and baseball and ran track, but when I got done running track, I went and shot baskets. When I got done playing baseball, I went and shot baskets. Basketball was my favorite, but I think there's just so many things for kids to do today that it kind of interferes with maybe really getting that dedicated kid out there.
Did you have to coach kids different back then than you do now?
Yeah, you could be 15, 20 years ago, I could be a lot harder on a kid than I could be today, So there was a big difference there, and that, that probably did that hurt your coaching? Maybe a little. Just had to find different ways to get things done. That's all.
Who are some coaches, you mentioned some of the college coaches you went to at clinics, but even in high school, who were some coaches that you admired and maybe took some ideas or philosophies from?
Well, again, a lot of, I like Bob Knight. I know that, and God rest his soul, just passed away here a little bit ago, but I really, I didn't try to, that's one thing, you got to be yourself. I mean, you can't go out and be a Bob Knight. You can't go out and be Dean Smith, Hubie Brown. You've got to be yourself. But those people like that is where I really got a lot of good ideas. And really, throughout all the clinics, Jay, I went to maybe 2 or 3 a year for all those years. So I've been to 150 clinics or whatever. A lot of good coaches who gave a lot of good information. So, I can say Bob Knight, I can say Dean Smith, I can say Hubie Brown, and those kind of guys like that. But there's a lot of coaches that I listened to at clinics through the years that gave me a lot of really good stuff.
Okay. We've kind of already mentioned Travis Lewis, so I'm not necessarily going to ask you to name the best players you've coached, but are there a handful of players that were kind of foundation players that really were benchmarks or kind of set standards in your program?
Yeah, and there was, Jay, and it's kind of hard to throw those names out there. I don't know if I'm saying refuse to, but yeah, I'll just say this. We had kids, obviously Travis, we had a lot of kids through the years from day one to the end who set examples and who were very good and who scored points and who did a lot of good things for us. And I know if I name you 3 or 4, I'm going to leave you 3 or 4 out that should have been mentioned. So, I hope that's okay.
No, that's perfectly acceptable. So I asked you in December if you were done coaching, and you said this has to be it. Are you still feeling that same way, or would you ever come back as an assistant or in another role?
Jay, I don't think so. I do want to study the game. You never know what may come up. You never know when somebody might say, hey, I've only got a year or 2 to go here myself. Why don't you sit on the bench here and help me this last year, But I really don't. I'm old enough now. Few things, nothing bad with my health terminally. I mean, but there's a few things that I have wrong, and it's just coaching is a stressful job. It just it really takes its toll on you mentally and physically both, and I could tell the last 3 or 4 years that when I got done with the practice, I was indeed done. Mm-hmm. And then in thinking about that later, I would always think about, practice later, an hour or so later, I'd think about practice. And I'd think, boy, are you sure you're doing your best job? Mm-hmm. And I wondered about that the last 3 or 4 years. And that's some more of the reason why I got out, was because I always said, if I'm not doing my best job, I'm going to get out.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'll coach again, Jay.
Okay. Well, we won't hold you to that. You can always come back. So So let's finish with a little rapid fire round. I'm going to say something and give me your first thought. Coach.
Somebody that's really looked up to.
Okay. Williamsfield.
A small town with some really gritty athletes in their programs.
Okay. Basketball.
Great game. Absolutely fantastic game that you can learn a lot about life out of.
Toughest place to play.
Oh, toughest place to play. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. With a lot of the conference games, Illini Bluffs, tough place to play. Princeville, Brimfield, they were all tough places to play.
Okay. How about, do you have a favorite opposing gym?
Favorite opposing, the gym I really like now is United's gym.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't know how many years old. It's got some, it's been there for a while now, but I really like that gym.
Okay. How about sports hero when you were growing up?
Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle.
Yep.
Baseball.
Yeah, baseball. I mean, later on, I love the Celtics, so Bob Cousy, Bo Russell, and all those guys, obviously into Larry Bird, those people, But
Okay.
that was, Mickey Mantle was my man.
Okay. John Herman told me to ask you this one. Hobbies or interests outside of basketball?
Well,
He said you were all basketball all the time. So he wants to know what you do. What did you like outside of basketball?
well, I'm like any other guy with a yard to mow, and when the summer's around, I do that type of thing and fiddle around and put wax on my vehicle and those types of things. So, but basketball is it has been a very big part of my life. It really has.
Yeah. And finally, if I wouldn't have been a coach or a teacher, I would have been.
Well, I would have probably been kicking around, in construction, factory, that type of thing, just like everybody else. But I really wanted to be a coach. I knew that I probably wasn't going to be good enough to play in the NBA. So, I asked myself, how can I stay associated with this game that I love? And coaching, coaching is what I got in, but I probably would have been kicking around like everybody else had I not got in there.
Right. Okay, that wraps up my special conversation with Bob Anderson. Bob,
Jay, can I say one
Sure.
thing? Okay. I've got a lot of congratulations and handshakes and emails and all that since I've quit. I want to thank all those people now. And I want to thank my family, especially my wife. And it's kind of tough here. But, if anybody's done it, since I quit, I took in a couple of college games, that was good. And I've been studying the game. I said, I'm going to study the game as long as I can. Mm-hmm. And the other two things that I'm doing take a lot of my time now. I watch a lot of encore westerns and episodes of Columbo.
Okay. So that fills the void, huh?
I'll leave you with that, Jay.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, it's not the same without you coaching on the sidelines, but wanted to congratulate you on your amazing career and thank you for joining me today on Galesburg in Focus.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Okay.